My name is Natalie Brooks. I'm 45 years old, and I didn't know my life was about to split cleanly into a before and an after until I was sitting in my own kitchen, holding a mug of coffee I'd reheated twice, listening to a man I thought I loved tell me I owed his ex-girlfriend $200,000. That sentence alone should tell you how unhinged this story gets. 3 months ago, I would have told anyone who asked that my life was good. Not flashy, not Instagram perfect, but solid, quiet, earned. I'd been divorced for 8 years. No courtroom drama, no shared debt, no bitter custody battles. My ex-husband and I co-parented well enough that our teenage kids, my 16-year-old son and 14-year-old daughter, didn't dread weekends with either of us. I worked as a senior systems architect at a mid-sized tech firm. Good salary, good benefits, predictable stress. I owned my house outright. 3 bedrooms, a yard I actually used, retirement accounts I monitored obsessively, emergency savings that let me sleep at night. Peace. Then I met Evan. It was at a wine tasting fundraiser, one of those charity events where everyone pretends they enjoy networking over overpriced cheese. Evan was charming without being pushy, smart without being smug. He told me he worked in consulting, helped companies streamline operations. Vague, but not suspicious enough to raise alarms. He listened, asked about my kids, didn't flinch when I said I was divorced, didn't rush anything, at least not at first. Looking back, that's the lie I told myself. 4 months in, he moved into my house. Yes, I know, but I was 45, not 25. I thought I could spot recklessness by now. He insisted on keeping his apartment for tax reasons. He paid me $800 a month toward expenses, said he liked contributing, said it made him feel like an adult. It made me think he was responsible. He got along with my kids, didn't try to parent them, didn't overstep, took interest without forcing closeness. My daughter liked him immediately. My son was neutral, which for a teenage boy counts as approval. We traveled, cooked together, built routines. I genuinely thought, this was what healthy looked like. Then 3 weeks ago, Evan asked me to sit down. Not during an argument, not after a fight, not even after something felt off. Just a calm Tuesday night. Natalie, he said, folding his hands like he was about to pitch an investment. We need to talk about our future. I smiled. I think it's time we formalize our relationship financially, he continued. I blinked. Like a joint account? He laughed. Actually laughed. No, I mean legally protecting interests. My ex-girlfriend's lawyer says she's entitled to palimony. I nearly choked on my coffee. Your ex-girlfriend is suing me? She's entitled to compensation, he said carefully. She supported me emotionally during the transition, and common law partnership applies after 6 months of cohabitation. His expression changed. Not confused, not embarrassed, cold. Well, he replied, her lawyer says there's a case. That's when Veronica entered my life like a grenade. According to the paperwork Evan slid across my kitchen table, Veronica, his ex-girlfriend, was demanding $200,000 for domestic partnership contributions, plus $3,000 a month for 3 years, for a relationship I'd never been part of, for a woman I'd never met, for a man who'd lived in my house less than a year. This is extortion, I said flatly. It's what she deserves, Evan replied. Sign the agreement or we'll see you in court. I stood up. Get out. He looked stunned. Excuse me? Pack your things and get out of my house. Now. I live here. You pay rent. There's no lease. You have no tenant rights beyond notice, and I'm giving you none. Leave, or I call the police. He stared at me for a long moment, long enough that I saw something real underneath the practiced calm. Calculation. He grabbed the papers, stormed into the bedroom, and began throwing clothes into a suitcase, shouting about how I'd regret this, how I didn't understand what I'd done. A framed photo fell off the wall when he slammed the door. 3 weeks later, I was served. Veronica had officially filed a palimony lawsuit, against me. And that's when I stopped reacting and started digging. The day after I was served, I didn't cry. That surprised me. I sat at my dining table, lawsuit papers spread out like some obscene homework assignment, and felt something settle into place inside my chest. Not panic, not heartbreak, but focus. Because fear wastes time. And time, I'd learned the hard way, is what predators rely on. Evan had underestimated one thing. I don't bluff. And I don't ignore my instincts once they start screaming. I'm a systems architect by trade, but research has always been my quiet obsession. When something doesn't add up, I pull it apart until it either makes sense or collapses completely. And Veronica? She didn't add up. I started simple. Her name on the lawsuit? Veronica Reeves. LinkedIn search. There she was, attractive, polished, listed as a business restructuring consultant. The photo was unmistakably her. Same sharp jawline, same smile that felt practiced rather than warm. But something felt off. Her profile hadn't been updated in over 2 years. No recent activity, no tagged colleagues, no comments, no visible network growth. That's unusual for a consultant. I ran the profile photo through a reverse image search. My stomach tightened. The same face appeared again, this time under a different name. Veronica Caldwell, interior designer. Different city, different career, same woman. I clicked deeper. Another hit. Veronica Morrison, life coach. 3 names, 3 professions, 1 face. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled slowly. Okay, so now we were getting somewhere. I paid for a full background check. Not the cheap online nonsense, but the kind that pulls court records, address histories, financial ties, the kind professionals use. The results landed in my inbox less than an hour later, and that's when the floor dropped out. Veronica Ann Morrison, married since 2018, still legally married, to a man named Theodore Morrison, address listed at an apartment complex 30 minutes from my house. The same complex Evan had claimed was just storage when I'd once noticed a parking decal on his car. But it got worse. Court records showed a pattern. 2019. Breach of promise to marry lawsuit against a man named Derek Hoffman. Dismissed. 2020. Palimony claim against Rajesh Patel. Settled out of court. 2021. Domestic partnership financial support lawsuit against Christopher Banks. Dismissed. Now me. 4 men, 4 years. This wasn't coincidence. This was a business model. I called my lawyer immediately, Robert Ellis, the same man who'd handled my divorce. Calm, methodical, impossible to rattle. "Rob," I said when he answered, "you're going to think I'm exaggerating. I'm not." I walked him through everything. The multiple identities, the marriage, the prior lawsuits. He went silent. Then, "Natalie, this is fraud. If she lied under oath about being single, that's perjury," he cut in. "Felony perjury. And if there's a pattern, that crosses into criminal territory." What do we do? We respond to her lawsuit, then we countersue, and then, he paused, we involve the district attorney. I stared at the screen. What about her husband? That's your call, Rob said. But if I were him, I'd want to know. So I found him. Theodore Morrison, accountant, mid-sized firm, normal LinkedIn, family photos going back years, wedding pictures with Veronica glowing beside him. More recent photos showed him alone, tired, no wedding ring. I messaged him directly. "Hi, Theodore. This is awkward but important. I recently dated someone named Veronica and just discovered she is your wife. I believe we need to talk." He replied within an hour. Oh God, not again. "Can we meet?" We met at a coffee shop downtown the next morning. He looked defeated before I even said hello. "So," he said quietly as he sat down, "she got you too." "Two?" "You're not the first," he replied. "Not even the third." He pulled out a folder. I wish I could say I was shocked by what was inside, but by then, shock had been replaced with something colder. Screenshots, bank transfers, legal filings, Years of documentation. She moves fast, Ted said. Moves in, keeps receipts, builds a paper trail, then threatens legal action. Most men settle quietly. How much? I asked. He hesitated. Roughly $400,000 over 4 years. I felt sick. The $800 a month she paid you, he added, that came from my account. My jaw clenched. She was using her husband's money to pay rent, I said slowly, while setting up a Palimony scam against me. Ted nodded. There's more. That lawyer she mentions, Mitchell Vaughn. Same guy every time. The name hit like a spark. I searched him right there. Flashy website. Big promises about alternative relationship compensation. Reviews were split, some praising him, others calling him predatory. We spent 3 hours comparing notes. 6 men total. 2 had settled. 3 cases dismissed. Now me. Then Ted showed me the screenshots that made my hands shake. Messages between Veronica and Mitchell. Garrett's house is worth around $800,000. Strong portfolio. Lonely divorcee. Easy mark. Get 6 months cohabitation minimum. Document everything. He thinks I love him. The room felt too small. The vacations, the dinners, my kids meeting her under false pretenses. All of it a con. But Veronica had made one fatal mistake. She'd lied in her lawsuit. Claimed she was single, claimed she'd given up her apartment, claimed financial dependence. All lies. All provable. Under oath. I smiled for the first time in days. Because lies like that don't just lose cases. They send people to jail. Once you see a scam clearly, it stops feeling personal. That realization saved me. Because if I'd stayed in the emotional wreckage, humiliation, anger, the violation of letting someone into my home, I might have hesitated, might have softened, might have tried to move on quietly. That's what people like Veronica count on. Instead, I got strategic. Ted and I became unlikely allies, not bonded by friendship, but by mutual exhaustion and shared clarity. There's something grounding about comparing facts instead of feelings, about lining up documents and watching a narrative collapse under its own weight. We met again 2 days later, this time at my lawyer's office. Robert spread everything across the conference table, like evidence in a crime documentary. Court filings, screenshots, bank statements, marriage certificates, leases, timelines. This, he said finally, steepling his fingers, is organized fraud. Ted exhaled sharply. So it's not just me being paranoid. No, Robert replied. You were being targeted. That word landed hard. Targeted. I thought about Evan, his calm delivery, the rehearsed phrases, the way he'd framed the lawsuit like an inevitability instead of extortion. You don't think Evan was just collateral? I asked. Robert shook his head. Unlikely. He knew about the lawsuit before it was filed. He presented it to you like leverage. That suggests coordination. Ted's jaw tightened. She's done that before. Used boyfriends as intermediaries. Makes it feel more personal, more intimidating. That was the moment the last of my self-doubt burned away. I hadn't been naive. I'd been engineered. We mapped everything. Veronica's pattern was almost boring in its consistency once you stripped away the drama. Target recently divorced professionals. Move fast, emotionally. Maintain separate residence for taxes. Create minimal but documented financial contributions. Introduce legal entitlement narrative. Threaten litigation. Settle quietly or escalate publicly. Mitchell Vaughn's role was even more damning. Every lawsuit used similar language, same phrasing, same inflated calculations, same legal theories stretched to absurdity. Alternative domestic partnership compensation, Robert read aloud from one filing. That's not even a recognized category. Ted leaned back. He feeds her the script. She feeds him clients. A referral loop, I said. Robert nodded. Which makes this conspiracy. The word felt heavy and satisfying. We filed our response to Veronica's lawsuit that afternoon. Not just a denial, a counter-offensive, fraud, intentional infliction of emotional distress, conversion, and most importantly, criminal referral. The district attorney's office didn't take long to respond. Apparently, when you present a neatly packaged pattern involving multiple victims, falsified sworn statements, and a cooperating spouse with years of documentation, people pay attention. Meanwhile, Veronica escalated. Predictably, within 48 hours of our filing, she launched a social media campaign. Photos of me, cropped from group shots, charity events, vacations, paired with captions about powerful women exploiting vulnerable partners, about being emotionally abandoned, about financial abuse. My phone started lighting up. Coworkers, friends, my ex-husband. My daughter found the posts before I could warn her. "Mom," she said quietly that night, phone clenched in her hand, "why is this woman saying you threw her out on the street?" I sat beside her and told her the truth. All of it. She listened without interrupting, eyes sharp, absorbing details like she always had. When I finished, she nodded once. "So she's lying?" "Yes." "Then don't let her win." I smiled. God, I loved that kid. Evan tried reaching out. Emails at first, then texts, then voicemails. "Natalie, this is getting out of control. We can still fix this. She's spiraling. You know how emotional she gets." I blocked him. Because here's the thing about manipulation. Once you see it clearly, the language loses its power. The real test came when Veronica showed up at my office building. Security intercepted her in the lobby, but not before she made a scene, crying loudly, shouting about betrayal, accusing me of ruining her life. HR called me in that afternoon. "We're concerned," the director said carefully. "This could affect workplace safety." I handed the marriage certificate, the court records, the screenshots, the criminal referral receipt. Her face drained of color. "We'll issue a trespass notice immediately," she said. "This is harassment." The pretrial hearing was scheduled for the following week. Robert warned me not to expect justice yet. "This hearing is procedural," he said, "but sometimes people underestimate judges." Veronica arrived that morning dressed for sympathy. Conservative suit, minimal makeup, hair pulled back like she wanted to look small. Mitchell Vaughn strutted beside her like he owned the room, gold pinky ring flashing, too much cologne, confidence bordering on arrogance. Judge Ellen Markham presided. She didn't smile. Mitchell opened with a practiced performance, painting Veronica as a woman abandoned after sacrificing career opportunities, framing me as emotionally distant, financially dominant. Veronica dabbed at her eyes on cue. Then Robert stood. "Your Honor," he said evenly, "before we proceed, there's a matter of perjury we need to address." Mitchell jumped to his feet. "Objection! Sit down!" Judge Markham snapped. Robert didn't rush. "Plaintiff claims she was single," he said. "Here is her valid marriage certificate." Veronica went pale. "Plaintiff claims she relinquished her apartment," he continued. "Here is her active lease, paid by her husband." Ted sat in the gallery, raised his hand in a small wave. The courtroom murmured. "And finally," Robert said, "plaintiff claims financial dependence. Here are bank records showing over $200,000 in assets derived from similar lawsuits." Judge Markham leaned forward. "Ms. Morrison," she said coldly, "are you currently married?" Veronica swallowed. "It's complicated. Yes or no?" "Yes." "And did you state under oath that you were single?" Veronica's voice cracked. "Yes." The judge turned to the bailiff. "Contact the district attorney." Mitchell started backing away. "I advise based on information provided." Veronica spun on him. "You knew. You helped me with the others." Judge Markham's eyes sharpened. "The others?" Silence. "How many times have you appeared in court together?" the judge asked Mitchell. He wiped his brow. 4. The gavel came down hard. "Case dismissed with prejudice. Legal fees awarded to the defendant. Mr. Vaughn, you are referred to the state bar. Mrs. Morrison, you will remain available for criminal investigation." Outside the courtroom, Veronica lost control. Screaming, accusations, threats. Ted handed her divorce papers right there. "I've been trying to serve you for 2 years," he said calmly. Now you can't dodge them. Security escorted her out. 2 days later, she and Mitchell were arrested. Fraud, conspiracy, perjury, extortion. The alliance had worked, and it wasn't over yet. If part 3 was the moment the truth surfaced, part 4 was when it detonated. Publicly. Irreversibly. The arrest came faster than I expected. 2 days after the pretrial hearing, Robert called me at 7:14 a.m. They picked her up, he said, and Vaughn. DA moved quicker than usual. I closed my eyes and let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Veronica Morrison, still technically Mrs. Morrison, was charged with multiple counts of fraud, perjury, filing false legal documents, and attempted extortion. Mitchell Vaughn was charged with conspiracy to commit fraud and suborning perjury, among other things. The word conspiracy kept showing up in bold. That matters, because conspiracy isn't about one bad decision. It's about intent, planning, pattern. Local news picked it up within hours. Serial romance scam exposed. Attorney and client arrested in Palimony fraud scheme. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Colleagues, old friends, parents from my kids' school, even people I hadn't spoken to in years. Most said the same thing. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I'm glad you fought back. Veronica's social media accounts went dark overnight. Mitchell Vaughn's website disappeared entirely. But the real collapse, the kind you don't recover from, happened outside the courthouse. When Veronica was released on temporary bail, reporters were waiting. She tried to hold it together. Sunglasses, neutral coat, head down. It lasted less than 30 seconds. Ted was there too. He walked up calmly and handed her another copy of the divorce papers. I'm filing today, he said, loud enough for microphones to catch. You're not taking anything, she snapped. Screamed that he'd ruined her life, that he'd betrayed her, that this was his fault. When she turned on Mitchell, accusing him of abandoning her, of promising this would work, he did exactly what con artists always do when the spotlight hits. He walked away. Fast. Cameras captured it all. The footage went viral by nightfall. By the end of the week, the district attorney announced formal indictments. The scope was larger than we'd realized. Mitchell hadn't just worked with Veronica. He'd built a system, multiple women, multiple false palimony claims, years of settlements and intimidation. The DA called it a calculated abuse of the legal system. The criminal trial was scheduled for 4 months later. In the meantime, the civil fallout began. Every man Veronica had targeted was contacted. Some were angry, some relieved. One cried on the phone when Robert reached out, said he thought he was crazy for years. Ted's divorce finally moved forward without obstruction. Turns out the prenup Veronica had insisted on to protect her assets worked beautifully, just not for her. She got nothing. No alimony, no settlement, no leverage. Her accounts were frozen pending restitution. By the time the criminal trial began, the outcome felt inevitable. Veronica pleaded guilty to reduced charges. 2 counts of fraud, 1 count of perjury. Sentence: 18 months in minimum security, 3 years probation, $300,000 in restitution. Mitchell Vaughn wasn't offered a deal. The evidence against him was overwhelming. He lost his law license, received 3 years in prison, ordered to pay nearly $1 million in restitution. When the verdicts were read, Veronica didn't cry. She stayed empty. Afterward, as people filtered out of the courtroom, she saw me. For a brief moment, the practiced confidence flickered back. Natalie, I shook my head. No. It started small, she whispered. It just got out of control. You called me an easy mark, I replied. You used my kids. You tried to steal my life. Her voice cracked. I'm going to lose everything. You already did, I said calmly. By choice. She broke down then. Real tears. Ugly ones. But some apologies come too late to matter. I walked away. And for the first time since that Tuesday night in my kitchen, the weight finally lifted. 6 months passed faster than I expected. Not because life suddenly became easy, but because it finally became quiet again. That's the thing no one tells you about surviving something like this. The explosion is loud, chaotic, all-consuming. But the aftermath is silent. You wake up one morning and realize there's no lawsuit hanging over your head, no notifications buzzing with rumors, no manipulative voice rewriting reality in your ear, just space. The criminal case closed first. Veronica Morrison, once polished, strategic, untouchable, entered minimum security quietly. No press conference, no dramatic statements. Just a line in a public record and a mugshot that looked nothing like the woman who'd once charmed her way into my home. 18 months, 3 years probation, $300,000 in restitution to be divided among her victims. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't justice in some poetic sense, but it was accountability. Mitchell Vaughn's fall was louder. When the state bar revoked his license, legal forums lit up. Former clients came forward. Investigators found a trail longer than anyone had expected. Emails, templates, scripts for emotional leverage. He hadn't just exploited loopholes. He'd manufactured them. 3 years in prison, nearly $1 million owed, a career erased. Ted's divorce finalized 2 months later. We met once afterward, not to strategize or document, but to breathe. He looked different. Lighter, like someone who'd finally stepped out of a room he didn't realize had been suffocating him. She got nothing, he told me with a small smile. Not a cent. I nodded. Good. He started dating again, slowly, cautiously. Someone kind, someone real. We didn't stay in touch regularly. Trauma bonds don't always need to become friendships. Sometimes it's enough to know you helped each other survive. As for Evan, he vanished. No apology, no explanation, no attempt at redemption, which told me everything I needed to know. HR cleared my record completely. My workplace issued a formal statement banning Veronica permanently and acknowledging the harassment. My kids adjusted in their own way. My son, ever practical, said one night, "At least you found out before she became our stepmom." My daughter didn't miss a beat. "Next time," she said, "maybe Google people before they move in." Fair. Financially, I came out ahead. Veronica was ordered to cover my legal fees and damages. I netted just over $15,000 after everything settled. But money wasn't the win. Clarity was. A few weeks ago, I ran into Veronica at the grocery store. She was out on bail then, before sentencing. Thin, exhausted, unrecognizable. "Natalie," she said quietly, "please, just a minute." I shook my head. "It wasn't supposed to go this far," she said. "Mitchell manipulated me." "You manipulated yourself," I replied. "You chose this every time." She started crying. Real tears this time. "I'm going to jail." "Yes," I said. "You are." I walked away. Didn't look back. Last week, a letter arrived. No return address. I didn't open it. Ted texted me later. Said he'd received one too. Neither of us read ours. Some chapters don't need closure. A year from now, a local station will probably run a follow-up story. Experts talking about narcissism, about entitlement, about how people like Veronica often believe their own lies. I believe that. But I also believe something else. Red flags are only red in hindsight if you ignore them in the moment. Vague careers, fast intimacy, separate residences, legal talk where love should be. Trust your instincts. Verify who you're letting into your life. And if someone starts talking about lawyers and entitlements before the first anniversary, run. I've started dating again. Slowly. Cautiously. Background checks aren't paranoia. They're boundaries. And peace? Peace is earned twice. Once when you build it, and again when you defend it.